What's going on, guys? It's Jim from Wrestle Wellbeing here, and welcome back to a brand new episode of The Unseen Battles, where we dive into our guests' history and journey through professional wrestling, but also we'll go a bit darker with their journeys, their battles, and their struggles with mental health. Hopefully, some triumphs as well, but will be on the way. But before I get into my guests today, we'll talk about the Hot Tag Foundation. For those of you that don't know, the Hot Tag Foundation is a non-profit organisation based here in the UK that aims to share wrestling with children across Britain, particularly those in need. The way that the Hot Tag Foundation does this is by collecting donations of wrestling items. This can be toys, merchandise, and things like that. Personalising these and packaging them, the donations, distributing them to children and young people. This often happens around Christmas and also at events. Sometimes in partnerships with hospitals as well or other charities. So in essence, the Hot Tag Foundation leverages the appeal of professional wrestling to bring joy and a sense of real-life superheroes to children. I've got a quick clip for you guys, around 2 minutes long, but you're going to want to stick around for this one, guys. It's going to be a fantastic episode, so we'll see you in 2 minutes.
Ready for turning red, steel claws of vengeance awaken the dead. The silence is shattered, the battle drums roar. We march through the ashes, we're ready for war. No mercy, no chains, no fear in our veins. The fire ignites, we'll never be tamed. Ready for war, the thunder will break, fury unleashed, the earth's gonna shake. Raise the black flag, let the demons soar. We're forged in the chaos, ready for war. The wolves are howling, the night's closing in. A blade in the darkness where shadows begin. The weak will crumble, their cries fade away. We stand in the inferno, we'll never obey. No mercy, no chains, no fear in our veins. The fire ignites, we'll never be tamed. Ready for war, the thunder will break. Fury unleashed, the earth's gonna shake. Raise the black flag, let the demons soar. We're forged in the chaos, ready for war.
So there you are, guys. That is the Hot Tag Foundation, along with the logos and links to all the fantastic UK wrestling companies up and down the UK. So on to today's episode of The Unseen Battles. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined by the former PWL Great British Champion, a former CPW Next Gen Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, a former CPW Heavyweight Champion, and a former FCW Tag Team Champion. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the exceptional Sugar Jimmy Vice. Jimmy, how's things?
Nice, good, loving it. I couldn't help but grin. It's just like it's just class. Thank you for the nice introduction, dude. And it's just amazing to see so many promotions all coming together for such a worthy and good cause. That's incredible. Like it's really good to see. And hopefully I can add the EPW logo to that as well. So I'll speak a bit more to you about that after we finish. But yeah.
Absolutely, mate. So first of all, Jimmy, I want to say a massive thank you for you reaching out and asking to come on and just coming on the show to start off with, mate. It's a massive thing and I really do appreciate it.
No, I appreciate the space and the obviously time that you put in. It's a lot of work, like we touched on before, but a lot of work goes into these, and I do appreciate you taking your time out and letting me come on and obviously have a platform to spread something that's quite important, not just a positive, but a negative that needs to be turned into a positive. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely, mate. It's my absolute pleasure. So, guys, if you've seen the show before, you know how the show goes. But for those of you that are here for the first time, what we're going to do is start off with, we're going to delve into Jimmy's journey into professional wrestling itself. For those of you that don't know, Jimmy is actually the founder of Eagle Pro Wrestling. Make sure you go check out Eagle Pro Wrestling on Instagram and all the fantastic socials. But also, if you look just above my head, the QR code in the corner is actually a link to Jimmy's personal Instagram page. So make sure you go and give Jimmy a follow as well. I just wanted to point out as well, guys, that today's episode may get a little bit darker than the usual ones. The reason behind that is because the reason for Jimmy coming on today is that Jimmy wants to tell his story, not just about his journey through wrestling and his journey in mental health. Jimmy is also a domestic abuse survivor. So for anyone that is also a survivor of domestic abuse, myself included, if you are struggling, if you need to find help whatsoever, there is a link to the National Domestic Abuse Helpline in the description below. Make sure you go check that out. But to start off the episode, Jimmy, I always start off the same. What inspired you to become a wrestler? Is it something that you've wanted to do ever since you were a child? Is it something that you got to later on in life? Tell us the story.
So it's down in part to I don't know whether guys will remember it. It's obviously quite a way ago now, but we got cable installed, and it was back when it was like a really big thing, and they had to come and dig up your garden and run a cable out, and like it was just such a big rigmarole to have this box just thinking. It had the little clicky buttons on the front that was like 1 to 0, and I just remember getting it and sitting there, and I think I watched something like Care Bears in French. Like that was the first thing I ever watched. But obviously, with cable came a load more channels, and we just happened to stumble across wrestling. So obviously, it was WWF back then, and I was just blown away and fascinated, and not by the usual character that kind of, you know, the larger than life like Hulk Hogan and things like that. Like I saw Bret Hart. And that was it. That was just, I've got goosebumps just even in mentioning it. It's like, I don't know what it was. He just was, he was just so cool. He was just, I can't even get the words out. He was just my hero straight away, straight off the bat. The glasses, the jacket, the move set, the hair, everything. I literally fell in love with the character. And it just kind of escalated from there. So, you know, wrestling moves on my younger brother and sister and things. We all used to get into like a battle royal on my mom's bed and just things like that. You know, the usual. But it was just always a thing. It was never wanted to be a footballer, never wanted to be like anything else. It was always a pro wrestler. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to move to America and be on the TV and be a star. Like, so yeah, that was my opening into it. And just obviously religiously watched it up until about 2002, 2003. I didn't like the way the programming had switched, and obviously it entered into a new era. And when I look back now, I missed a lot of good wrestling, but I just kind of stopped enjoying it. You know, the storytelling changed, the characters, you know, the people that I liked, people like Brett, Owen, Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude, they'd all kind of gone, and just, yeah, it just changed too much for me. I never really watched WCW either, so obviously I didn't pick up from any new ones coming through. I was very, like it frustrates me sometimes how my brain works. I was very, very loyal to WWF, and watching WCW felt like cheating on them. Like, not that they would have ever realized, but it just in how my brain is wired. Like, I was very loyal, and I would only watch WWF. So I missed out on like a catalogue of matches. Obviously, I've gone back now for research and watched them, but yeah, it just, that's what stuck with me, and it was just always something that I spoke about, wanted to do, appreciated, and for the most part of like my young adult life had missed out on, because obviously when I stopped watching it, there was a big void that football didn't give me or anything like that. You know, there's nothing else like pro wrestling. There's, you can't associate it with anything else that you will watch or experience. So yeah, so it kind of, yeah, that's how I got into it. You know, my old man, bless him, God rest his soul, was like a big Macho Man fan. It just, yeah, it was like a family affair. It was like, you know, when pay-per-views were on, just, yeah, it was like such a big thing, and I kind of miss that. Like, the nostalgia's a very dangerous drug, isn't it? Because we always kind of, there's that line, isn't there, in The Office, where he says, you know, I wish there was a way of being told that we were in the good old days while we were in it. And I just, like, choked me up then just saying it, because it is, you know, I wish I could have appreciated those moments even more than I already did. You know, especially like losing my dad and never experiencing him watching me like take this on. So yeah, so it's a big thing for me. It's not just a job or a hobby or it's ingrained in my soul, like from a very, very young age. So, and I have been very, very blessed to meet Brett twice. And they say never meet your heroes, but that guy is just, he's just the best. He really is. He's just, I won't ever hear any different about him. He's, you know, phenomenal. And he's always got time for his fans. Like, you know, I was on a convention with him, which blows my mind to even say that I was on a poster with Brett, you know, let alone sat in a VIP lounge with him and Mickey James, and I'll scoop all these names up afterwards, but you know, all these names are dropping. But yeah, to be on an actual show before Clash at the Castle in Wales was insane. You know, to be stood there after the event had happened and have the Mountie approach me and say, I would like a picture with you, and not just like out of just thinking to do, like, he enjoyed the experience as well and he wanted a picture with all the wrestlers. And that just, like, I grew up watching him, you know, like, it was just one of those moments where you, like, you pinch yourself. And obviously had Adrian Street, that's where I first met him, and Miss Linda. Spent the whole day with them because we went and picked them up. So it was just one of those things that I don't think, it's hard to picture what would ever top that moment in wrestling for me. Like, I've had some astonishing moments and moments that, you know, bring on such like amazing emotions. But yeah, it's hard to ever top sat there with Brett, knowing that like people have paid to come into this thing, and you know, I'm there with him. It's like, yeah, so yeah, I'll scoop all those names back up now, and I might drop some more after. This is always the thing like that I don't get with people. I am just going to go off on a little tangent here because it's our story. So, you know, when people always say that, like, I know I made a joke of it, but like they'll always say, oh, he's like bragging. He's like, he's dropping names. He's like, but why wouldn't I? Like, it's like, especially with Brett, big fan, like, he's my hero. Why wouldn't I mention in a conversation about wrestling that I'd met him? Like, it just, I never get this where people get shut down for talking about something that they're passionate about or who they've met, or and it's not just in wrestling. People that do cosplay, people that do like gaming, people that do they've all got their heroes, they've all got their idols. So if you were talking about that, why wouldn't you mention who you've met? Or it's a very relevant thing to that topic, and I think sometimes it maybe comes out of a little bit of jealousy, but people should never be embarrassed or made to feel some kind of way about speaking about people they've met, even if it is dropping names. So I went off on a little bit, but I think it's valid.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree with that, buddy. So obviously, when you decided that obviously wrestling is for you, what was your first training session like? Like when you first took a bump, what was that like? Can you explain that to us?
Just like nothing. Just everything and anything that I'd ever wanted it to be or thought that it was. Obviously, I'd taken bumps when I was back in secondary school, on grass fields or on the gym mats at school during PE, but actually being taught how to, properly, professionally do one, not just replicating what you'd seen on TV. It was just a huge rush of just like arriving, like this is me, this is what I am here in this vessel to do. This is it. Like there's nothing else that I now want to do. Anything is gonna sort of go by the wayside for it, really. It's and it was at PWL as well, so which is a hell of a link round to the championship, winning that. So it was such a big thing. But yeah, it was just incredible. The guy that pretty much spent the whole session with me, his name's Gino. He doesn't wrestle anymore, but I'll always be really grateful to him. I always remember at one point of the session, he actually went over to Mad Dog and he was like, I've taught him everything that, the first few weeks of training, and he's just absorbed it and he's done it and he's, we're moving on. Is there anything else I can show him in this? I was just so hungry and so being a perfectionist as well, sort of listening and doing things. It was just picked it up very, very quickly. So yeah, it was just always a nice feeling, really. And like I said, like nothing else I'd ever experienced. And the bug bit me like big time. So I was actually quite, I don't want to jump the gun, but I think the next question is about debut match, is it? Or is that, have I jumped the gun too much?
So my next question for you was going to be, what have been some of you've mentioned obviously that you've had a lot of memorable matches.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about some of those, some of the most memorable moments and matches in your career so far?
Yeah, so obviously touched on the main one. One that obviously springs to mind, it's because it's happened just recently at my last show. I have a trainee that had to go for major spine surgery because her spine literally was doing an S, and she had to go and have surgery to straighten it. But she'd been training with us. She'd literally all under obviously doctors' advisories, and no bumps that the kids take are ever not on crash mats. So, but she was literally jumping off the top rope, taking back bumps. She was like literally just no fear, no worry, no panic of what she was about to face, obviously the surgery wise, and just like seeing her so passionate about wrestling was just incredible. And like I had them do a demo at the last show, and hers was the last one, and obviously just literally the day before, and this was as well the day before she was due to go in for the surgery. So this was the Saturday she was in surgery in Liverpool on Sunday, and she'd been told on the Friday that she was never going to be able to wrestle again. And I'm getting choked up again like I did at the show, but like just to like have that little part of her journey was incredible. And just to see her even still the day before, still stepping up, taking a bump, just basically laughing in the face of danger, you know, not fazed by what she was about to go through. And I saw her this morning again, and a picture went up yesterday because I gifted her a official trainee varsity jacket, because despite the doctors telling her that she'll never wrestle, wrestling's not just about in ring. You know, there's so much that she can be involved in, whether that's announcing or, you know, being a general manager, being a commentator. There is so much to wrestling that she can still be involved in. So I stamped that out very quickly, because for the doctor to be like, you can't wrestle, you can't be a wrestler, that's not the full stop in her story. Like, there is other bits. So she's coming to training tonight as well, which is like massive. So obviously not to do any bumps because she's like literally 2 weeks out of surgery, but she's up walking around. She's grown like 4 inches in height. So she's like, which is crazy to see her now, you know, going from being so obviously sort of crooked and thingy to up straight. And, you know, it's just, she's taken it in a stride and just nothing's fazed her. But some of her first words when she came around was, I want to go and see my wrestling family. So, you know, that's another incredible moment that, you know, is a tough one to top. But as for like memorable matches, I do have a few. Obviously the first championship with FCW, winning those tag belts. You know, I think I was 9 months after my like official debut. So to win a belt so quickly at a promotion that wasn't my like own, was a huge honor. And we told a beautiful story. We had a huge payoff. And it was just one of those feelings again that's really difficult to replicate. And then me and Mad Dog had I think we timed it in the end. It was about a 50 minute hardcore match, which we just beat the living tar out of each other. You know, I don't unfortunately have any footage of that match, and it's always one of those that's devastating, but I'll get into that later. That ties in with that. But I've just got pictures, and I mean, the pictures tell the story anyway. You know, just there's a stop sign involved. There's like a plunger to the groin area involved. There's a fire extinguisher. The funniest thing about the plunger is obviously we'd done the spot with the sticking it to the groin, which was completely on the fly. You know, it wasn't discussed, wasn't. So, you know, it was a bigger shock to me as it was to there. But it was the fact of, obviously, while I was selling that lay on the canvas, he come over and stuck the plunger on my back, and it literally made the suction noise. And obviously, like, trying to be the heel in that match and trying to, like, obviously not burst out laughing. Yeah, it's just always just those little moments in wrestling that you can take away that, you know, nothing's ever going to change that. That's something that happened, and it's a beautiful moment. And obviously winning my first singles title at CPW will always be a huge moment, because my journey was a bit turbulent at the start. So to break away and go and win a title on my own, off my own back, through my own hard work, was just a huge compliment to me as a wrestler, as a performer. And I just remember just winning and just coming back through the curtain and just literally collapsing in like floods of tears, and just like, it was just like, I've done it. You know, if I don't do anything else in wrestling, I've put the hard work in, and I've been recognized as a champion, and I've had a belt put on my shoulder. So yeah, it just it's there's probably hundreds more that once this is gone, I'll be like, oh, why didn't I say that one? Why didn't I? But those are the ones that kind of spring to mind when you ask the question. So I'll go with them.
Absolutely, bud. So we're going to talk about Eagle Pro Wrestling in a very short while. Whilst I was doing my research, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think I saw that you had a 4-way match with Martin Kirby. Is that correct?
Yes.
What was it like working with Martin?
See, that's one of them that there's so much that goes on in your career. There's like working with Martin Kirby was incredible. Being backstage with him, at one point, like we were Facebook friends, and but not like him as a person, not his persona. And we used to speak quite often. He is a phenomenal talent that I know he's been everywhere, but he's one of those that should be like there, if that makes sense. Like he should have been scooped up and utilized like years and years ago. His work in the ring, his work out of the ring, he's an awesome performer, and it was a huge honor to be in the match. Just his professionalism as well. Like I don't want to obviously spoil too much about the inner workings of wrestling, but when you've got somebody that's as experienced and knowledgeable as him, making an effort to crawl from one side of the ring around the outside to the other to make sure you're okay, and you're okay going into the next spot after we had a big spot, was just, it's one of those moments that will always stick with me, of like that should be like the level of what we all try and do as a team, as a collective, as wrestlers. Just phenomenal guy. Miss him an awful lot, and it is due a reaching out of like obviously bringing him into Eagle Pro, because I miss the guy. I've got a picture popped up on my phone the other day of a selfie that I had with him backstage, so it's just it's good to see that, because obviously he left for a little bit, which I think a lot of guys did during lockdown. I think that break away from it for everyone was kind of like, oh, do I really want to do this anymore? Do I really want to, my body's actually feeling okay. I'm not aching. I'm not, So I think a lot of guys questioned it. Me too. And I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad he's still doing his work around, and obviously no doubt passing on similar sort of experiences to others. I was still very, very much early in my career during that match. So yeah, it was a huge honor. So thank you as well. That's a really nice question. I didn't expect that one. So that's good.
Well, let's try and catch the guests out, see their reaction, because thankfully with the research, it does come up with things like that.
Yeah, 100%.
So like, obviously you've won quite a few titles in your career so far. What's it like when, obviously the promoter will come, if the promoter comes up to you, or you get told by someone that you need to go see the promoter? What's it like being told you're going over, you're winning this title? What goes through your head?
So a few things. I'm obviously straight away you're like, oh my god, because fortunately a lot of the titles have been, in fact all of the titles have been very story driven. So I've known sometimes a couple of months in advance that, right, this is where we're going to, but obviously it's wrestling, anything can happen, and I've always been under the notion of it in real life and in wrestling that until that referee counts that 3 count and my hand's raised, anything can still happen, because something could go on in the match. The crowd could not be invested, so the promoter panics and he's like, "Oh my god, tell them to change the finish," or So until that 3 count has gone down, it's even one of them. It's like when you're pinning them. Like, I think I've had the thought maybe once. I'm like, what if they kick out? I'm like, just what do I do? What do I like? Like, it just, yeah. Until that bell rings and my hand's raised and the belt's in my hands, because it's happened. It has happened. I was meant to be going over to unify my CPW championship with another one that Niall Fairchild had at the time. And I think it was the day of the show. Like, as I arrived, it was like, "Oh, we're changing the finish. He's going over, you're not." And I cried at the end of that one, because I put him over really strong. We had a really solid match, but it was just, we'd built up to it. I'd obviously built myself up getting excited. I was going to unify a championship. That was like a huge thing for me. And then it gets taken away from you, and you still have to go out and you still have to give that 100% regardless. And then, yeah, just all the emotion of it, and just hearing the crowd be happy, because obviously if they'd have booed me, well, they would have, because I wasn't like there by the crowd. So, that would have been the reaction we were aiming for. But to hear them cheer so loudly, like, it's still a job done. You've done it. And yeah, it's so yeah, until it gets put in your hands, it's anything can happen. So, but it's the best feeling, and being champion is, I think, I'm gonna say it's the only downfall to having your own promotion is I'm not the type of person to book myself into winning a belt. Nothing wrong with it if it works, if it's for the thing, but if I win one, I want it to be for something, not because I've decided that that's what it's going to be. I can make that decision when I go to another promotion and work hard and do everything I can, and that can be my decision to give them no doubt that I should have the belt. But I just kind of think, I'm not going to never say never, but I don't think I would ever be the most prestigious title in my promotion. Like, I think if anything, it would be like a tag team belt or something. Spoiler alert. So it would be something that there was like it wouldn't be the main like poster title of the thing, and it would have to make sense, and it would have to be with a view to elevating younger talent, to pass it on down the line. It wouldn't just be a look at me, I've got a belt. That's what I'd go and work at other promotions for. So yeah.
Absolutely, mate. So we're going to touch on EPW for a couple of questions. When you first started EPW, what in your eyes, what was the biggest gap or issues that you saw on the independent scene that ultimately inspired you to say, "I'm going to start my own company"?
Oof. So that's a big question, and it leads into something obviously that we'll touch on after. But I had a previous promotion that was co-owned, and I really enjoyed it. I've got a bump count like everyone else. I did get to a point in my career where I was having to share locker rooms with people that I didn't want to be around. For one reason or another, I didn't want to be around these people, through things that I'd seen, things that I'd heard. I couldn't deal with that side of it anymore, of quite often a lack of morals within the independent scene. so when I first started the other promotion, it was a way of, I wasn't ready to give up this dream. Just because I didn't want to venture out and didn't want the late nights traveling back, and because obviously I lived in South Wales at the time, so anywhere was like a 2.5-3 hour drive. I was sick of eating McDonald's at like 2 a.m, and just the whole thing of it coming. And like I said, I will touch on the reasons why after, but yeah, I think it's my way of still being able to chase this childhood dream, but have complete and full control over the locker room that I'm in, and making sure it's a safe space, making sure there's no negativity, and making sure that it's just, a nice place, and we as performers are treated that way, and not just as just cash cows, or I saw everything that was wrong in my experiences that I'd had, and wanted to put those right through a thing that I could control fully. So that's how it came. It was I missed the promotion that I had, and obviously we'll touch on the journey, but it got to a point where I'd missed it and I wanted to do it again. And the Eagle obviously has a big part to play in why it's called that as well. So
absolutely, mate. So can you describe what the most difficult aspect of wearing two hats, being obviously Jimmy the founder, the boss, and Jimmy Sugar Jimmy Vice, the person that is obviously a colleague in the locker room? Can you describe any difficult aspects?
The way I run EPW is, I'm a wrestling fan. I love wrestling. It means a lot to me. It means, and seeing other wrestlers be passionate and things about it is what drives me to do it. Once that kind of ends and that love and passion goes, then I think you should kind of go anyway, because it is a business that's driven on, passion and sort of hard work. But I don't. It's a really tough question. I don't tend to see myself when I'm backstage as the promoter, and it still catches me unawares now when I've got people that I've booked that have been wrestling a little bit longer, or even the ones that haven't been wrestling as long, coming up to me to ask what I want, or is this okay, or is this, I still have to pinch myself. I'm very much a person that keeps my ego in check. I haven't started to become a promoter to feed an ego that needs to be like, I'm in control, I'm this, there's certain aspects that I want to control, but for a positive outlook. So being the two, obviously it's a lot more stressful, I will say, especially the show just gone. The ring just didn't want to set up properly. I had 10 guys around this ring trying to tighten the ropes and trying to get it all thing, and it flew up, but it just wouldn't. The last finishing touches, the aprons wouldn't tighten properly. It was just, when you just like that kind of thing starts and you're like, oh, here we go. Like, what else now is gonna? And then it got to the point where it was like half an hour until doors. And I know it sounds really silly, but I had the hall from 3:30 this time instead of 3, and that half an hour kicked my ass like big time. Like, it's half an hour, it shouldn't matter, but boy did it matter. It's just like it had such a knock on. Like I said, the ring not thingy in, the entranceway wouldn't go up properly. I was trying to get promos done backstage, they were just taking forever. The announcer came to me like half an hour, 45 minutes maybe before the show, and was like, I don't feel very well all of a sudden. So I was like, oh my God, I've literally got like, you know, this going on. And then I went to play the music to do a run through because we had a lot of segments that were like full blackout we were trying. So went to play the videos that played absolutely fine on my laptop, absolutely fine on my phone. Went to play them through the PA system, absolutely nothing. So I'm sat there, literally fans are starting to now queue up. A couple that obviously like family and stuff have let themselves in, as they always do, you know. Oh, I know the owner, so I get privileges. So we don't quite have a lock on the door, so I just have to kind of let them in. But yeah, it was just, I think the last show I was so stressed and I was so like thinking I don't ever think when I go backstage like, oh, I'm in charge here. You know, this is, you know, and the guys that I book, I have full trust in. I've handpicked them. I know they're as passionate and as driven, so I don't ever have to be that like I'm the boss kind of thing. Like you will do as I say kind of thing. It's we're there for all sharing the same experience, and you know, yeah, I think those are the only struggles that I have is trying to be the promoter, as in like making sure everything's ready to then switching off and then being the performer. And I added extra stress to myself because obviously I had the kids doing the demo at the start, and then I went straight into my match. So I had very little time to plan, very little, you know, but the guys were phenomenal. They were so understanding, so supportive, so like, and again, like I said, full trust in them. So, you know, me just saying to them, look, I'm still trying to sort this out. I will give you my undivided attention in like 10 minutes. Like, you know, it's just, that's how I just love it. I'm just very grateful. So yeah, I hope that answered it, because I tend to like speak a lot, but yeah, I don't really see myself as the owner, you know. And whenever I'm backstage, it's just I'm just Jimmy Vice. I'm just me. I'm just yeah. So good question again, man. That's like you get me thinking. I was like,
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, really do appreciate you talking about that stuff. It's really lovely to see that. Obviously, you're not doing this to inflate your own ego. You're not doing it to say I'm this person, this is all about me, sort of thing. There's a lot of similarities between yourself and Jonathan and Cedric, who runs UKW in Batley near myself. Met Jonathan on a couple of occasions, has been absolutely brilliant with us. Myself and my friend Liam from Magical Wrestling, we did 2 live reaction videos at UK Wrestling, and they were really accommodating. They set up a table for us. They even got us an extension cable for me to power my laptop. I was just like, and we just did not expect it whatsoever, and they were just brilliant. So obviously when you started Eagle Pro Wrestling, what core values did you want to instill, not just in your wrestlers but your staff as well, to set you apart from the other promotions?
So there's quite a few, again, touching on like my negatives that I've taken from being out on the road and being around obviously sort of not so nice locker rooms and just seeing how things are done not very well. I'm very much under the thing of that we're wrestlers, okay? We are putting our bodies on the line out there. We don't get paid very well considering what we're actually doing. But we do it because we're all passionate about it, and you know, we've got an end goal. We're all apprentices, I guess, in a way, like trying to chip away and obviously get that higher wage and get noticed by the bigger promotions, etc., etc. But one of those, while I'm touching on that, is the higher the gate, the more the wrestlers should get paid. Like, you should be sharing that. You know, the in-ring photos that I do, I pay all the wrestlers a little something extra for doing those, because they're still giving their time. Yes, they're not wrestling, but you know, if they were in a meet and greet or they were in a thing, that that's time. And again, like we touched on before, like it's a commodity, your time is, and it should be that you are putting a value to that. I've been there where I've traveled 40 minutes to a show and I've earned £5, and it's and I've wrestled 3 times that night, and it's like I've given more, like, and you still just, there you go, thank you. So yeah, that's one of my things that I will always instill, is if the more this grows and the more this increases, the wrestlers will reap the benefits of that as well, because why shouldn't they? Yes, it's a business at the end of the day, but I don't run it because it's a business. I run it because it's my passion, my childhood dream. The locker rooms, I have invested in a divider, so the women's wrestlers that I book can have a separate section. Unfortunately, the building that I've got is not accommodating enough to have 2 separate rooms, which I would love. But in my experience, especially running the previous promotion, the female talent didn't want to be separate anyway. Like, they were grateful that they could get changed and not have to kind of like ask everyone to turn around, or the situations that you shouldn't really be in. But like, they wanted to be a part of it, because being segregated was kind of like, it was almost like a punishment, I guess. It's like, well, you're in that room, we're in this room. They kind of wanted to be around the vibe and the buzz. So obviously I've bought a divider for the room so they can have the best of both worlds. I provide boxes with basically all the essentials that wrestlers forget or need backstage. So baby wipes, tissues, hair bubbles, spray bottles, chewing gums, deodorants, sanitary products. So everything that if you get caught short, there's something there, and there's one for the men, one for the women, and they get sort of topped up each show. Try and put on food where I can. Last show it was a bit of a running joke, because we'd sold loads of hot dogs, but we'd cooked what we basically had left. So I sort of come into the changing room, and it was like, go get yourself a hot dog, and obviously it was like, oh, hot dog and a handshake. But we'll try and, like, obviously as it grows again, that food, it's not going to be left over from the show. It's going to be properly put on, it's going to be catered for. And it's just, we're superstars, and I don't care what anybody says, no matter what level, no matter what promotion, we are superstars, and we are there because people have paid to come and watch us. It is a show, it's a production, it's everything. So we should be treated that way. And that's something, again, that's ingrained, where you've had to go and change, and you're not really, it's kind of like you get a handshake from the promoter and that's it, you don't see him again. Or it's kind of, like I said, I've picked up on things from the road and are just there. And obviously also safety of everyone that's involved, so there's no negativity, there's no any whiff of any sort of like negative vibes, or regardless of who it is, that they'd obviously be spoken to. And then if it's not going to change, then they wouldn't come back, because the locker room is a beautiful place. It's an amazing place that I've got at EPW, and I wouldn't ever jeopardize that by booking somebody that somebody doesn't quite get on with. Or I've been asked to travel with people that I don't particularly want to share a car journey with, but I've been forced to, because it's like, well, I'm not paying you X's because I'm already paying them. So it's all these little things that I'm just trying to make wrestling what it should be, what in my eyes and in my opinion. So just like little things like the picture that I put up just after the show of everyone in, obviously, the new merch that I'd printed myself. I gifted everyone on the roster a t-shirt, because it was just an extra way of being like, thank you. Like, here's a t-shirt. Obviously, please wear it, promote us, be proud to wear it. But it's only like, you know, football players wearing the full tracksuits with a name badge on, or, you know, they're still repping the brand, aren't they? They're still, you know, they're a Manchester United player. They are like, so why wouldn't they want to wear that? So yeah, there's just doing everything that I possibly can within my power to make sure that when those guys are with me, and that whole day is like an experience. It's a wow. Like, you know, I want them to go away, and I want them to come back. I want them to tell other people. I want them to be happy where they're working. Because I've been places where I'm not, and it's not a very nice place. It's not, you know, wrestling can be very, very lonely, because nobody wants to stick their head out because it'll get locked off because too many people want a booking, or, you know, so they won't necessarily stand up for what's right. So yeah, I just try and put everything together that I've experienced, and just, you know, like, yeah, it's I've got a vision, and I'm very, very rapidly getting towards that vision, in just a small amount of time. You know, I've only done 3-4 shows now, so the growth and the progression from starting the first show, you know, it's all going in the right direction towards that vision that I've got. And when I achieve that, to me it's going to be just perfect. I just, you know, it's everything that I want. So
Absolutely, mate. So, final question before we get into the mental health side of things. As a promoter, if you could book any two wrestlers from the UKW scene at all, just call it a dream match. If you could book any two wrestlers in the UKW scene, who would you book and why?
wow. Is this current, like, or is this just like, because obviously a couple of kind of, is this like people who are active?
I would say active. If you could have like, so if it was like your WrestleMania, if it was Eagle Pro Wrestling's WrestleMania and you could book the main event, who would you book now?
Straight away I was going to be like, myself. Why wouldn't I? No, wow. That's a really tough question. There's so many. Main event. And it's trying to pick a match as well that nobody else has done. But then in doing so, I've released it, and then everybody will book those two people. So it's like, God, that is really difficult. The one name that does spring to mind, through my experience with him in a locker room, and also the work that he's now doing at Elevation, and obviously I book quite a few of his trainees, and their morals and their work ethic and everything is just an extension of obviously what he is putting in, and that's Joseph Connors. Just very grateful for the work that he's doing, and I have reached out and told him so, you know, after the first couple of shows with his guys there, because they were some of the first through the door. Their cases went down, they were straight away onto the ring. They were, you know, nothing was too much for them. That's something I will circle back to as well, is having a dedicated ring crew so the wrestlers don't have to put the ring up. That's another thing that I'm working towards. So, because all this paying you dues and things like that. I agree with that to a certain extent, and a wrestler should know how to put up and take down a ring. But again, we're superstars, so what? Why should we? So, sorry. So Joseph Connors versus. I'm going to say Saxon Huxley. I have tried to book him since he's come back, obviously, to the UK, but dates and stuff just haven't kind of got there. Met him at a training session, several training sessions with Marty Jones. Very fond of the guy, like really, really nice, like polite, professional guy. And despite obviously everything that's been going on in his career, you know, the elevated the way it has and things, he's still just a top guy. Just really, you know, I spoke to him recently. He's just one of those guys that I like. I wish I could have in my locker room all the time, you know, just for the knowledge, for the like the way they are, the professionalism. So yeah, you'll see that match everywhere now. So that'll be it now. It'll be just that's the way wrestling works, isn't it? It's like you got promoters that are watching, they're like, oh yeah, that'd be dead good. That'd be like that's it, main event, title match, we're done. But no, I'm gonna say them too.
Fantastic, bud. So, like I said, we're going to go into the mental health side of things now, mate. So, for anyone that is watching, just to let you guys know that this episode may get quite dark because this is not just about mental health struggles, but it also is about Jimmy's battle through a very horrific domestic abuse problem that he faced. Like I said at the beginning, if you are suffering, if you are someone that is a domestic abuse survivor, such as myself and Jimmy, there is the National Domestic Abuse Helpline in the description below. Make sure you go check that out. If it is mental health that you are suffering with, there are links to all sorts of organizations in the link below, in the description below as well. So we're going to play a very quick transition, Jimmy, and then we're going to jump straight into the questions, bud. So, Jimmy, first question I'd like to ask you, bud. Can you tell us when you first started experiencing struggles with mental health, please?
So pretty much at the start of my wrestling career, I didn't really have much knowledge of it. You know, I was always very much a person that had watched sort of my dad, regardless of what was going on in his life, like whether he was ill or whether it was a cup of whiskey in his coffee and off he went. You know, it was just nothing. I only experienced my dad crying once, and that was when our hamster died, of all things. Like, you know, I'd seen him lose his own dad and things that, like, nothing ever fazed him, nothing. So I was always kind of kept away from anything like that, I guess, quite fortunately, you know. And it was a different time back then as well. It wasn't spoken about as much, you know. We were still, I guess, very much under the thing of like, oh, man up, you know, it's kind of men don't feel that. It's, you know, but, you know, men don't cry, like all this kind of like stuff was still hadn't kind of like been tackled yet or kind of combated. So yeah, it was right at the start, and that was due to the relationship that I was in, which was unfortunately my first of the two instances with domestic violence. So I've always been like a very positive, very like happy person, you know. I have my doubts about myself. I have my imposter syndrome. I have all of that, but I've always been like a very much, I'm happy, I'm grateful, I'm, you know, bubbly. You know, I was always one of those that whenever I worked in places, if I had an off day, it was like, oh my God, what's the matter with you? And I'd be like, I'm just quiet today. I haven't got anything to give today. Not necessarily because I was like struggling mentally. I was just, I might be like focused on something a bit more, but they were so used to having that like loud, bubbly like thing. And I guess people used to feed off it, and they still kind of do, I guess. But so yeah, it was a very like slow but fast transition in that first relationship of, and obviously the more I learn about it now, like mirroring, love bombing, like all the stages that you go through with being with a narcissist and an abuser, it's all calculated and all, woven into slowly but surely wearing you down and getting past that layer of obviously protection that I'd had with being so happy and being so jolly, and nothing fazed me in life. So it was a very slow, but like I said, but fast process. And it took me up until I say officially debuted, because I actually debuted for Mad Dog, but it was on a fair. So it was like he had the show there all day and was just putting on matches, and he just said like, "I'll just chuck someone's gear on and go and have a go." I'd only had one training session, but obviously I'd taken a body slam, I'd given a body slam, I'd done strikes, I took a spear as well from somebody who was undefeated, and it I watch it back now and I'm like, oh, okay, I took that really well, So yeah, when the day of making my official debut, oh God, it was a hell of a day. So it's one of those days that's split into several different sections. So woke up, obviously. So I'll take you back. The night before, one of the other trainees had bodged a move and nearly broke my ankle. So huge amounts of pain. Obviously, it strapped my foot up because there was no way that I wasn't debuting. Nothing was going to stop me. So I'd strapped my foot up, taken painkillers and things like that. Done everything that I could, rubbed gel on it. Not that does anything, but like I said, everything that I could. And I still had like Lonsdale training boots as well. And I didn't even have the pink boots that Jimmy's known for now. So yeah, the morning of, obviously woke up still in pain. Had to go out and buy a new like razor, like grooming kit, because the one I had got broken earlier that morning in an argument. So I had to go and rush out and get that. But the Batmobile was at Telford Town Centre. So the 80s Batmobile, my favourite one, arguably the best one, apart from Adam West's. So that was up Town Centre. So I literally had a selfie with that. And that was like a moment for me, because it was like, I love this Batmobile. Like, I love like Batman. It's like, I've literally got a cushion behind me. So that was like one of those moments that I'd had a bit of stress, but then it had got kind of eradicated. So I was like, okay, I can go home, I can do my beard. Or I'd done my beard. I can go home, I can get my stuff together, and I can get to the show. I'd printed my singlet as well that morning, so like it was all logoed up. It was all like I was ready. So I come back, got into the house, and for whatever reason, she went off on her usual. Like, obviously, there's patterns that you start noticing. And obviously I was still hobbling at this point. Like I couldn't weight bear on my foot. So we got into this argument, and her eldest daughter was in the house at the time. So I was very aware of like, I don't like arguing in front of the kids. It's like, expect that they're not mine anyway, but I don't want them to experience this. They don't need to hear this. Previously I'd had to wrestle a knife off this woman because she was going to go and stab her daughter, and got cut and things like that. So a lot had gone on to get up to this point. So something kicked off. Obviously, she saw red as she did quite often. And she was literally chasing me around the house with a pair of scissors and my singlet in her hand, threatening to cut it, and trying to push me down the stairs. Obviously, as I said, I couldn't weight bear. I couldn't, and it was a 3-story house. So trying to get away from her was like, I couldn't get anywhere. In the end, I managed to get into our bedroom, and it was on the 2nd floor. And I just remember just opening the window and just thinking, well, it's going to hurt, but I need to just get away from her. She's like, this is like levels of craziness that I've not seen before. Like, she's literally got a pair of scissors in her hand. Obviously thought better of it because I was like, my ankle's already shot. I don't want to, further it. Managed to get the singlet off her. But at which point, it's one of those images that I've always got, because her daughter was where the door was. There was like a slight little bit of wall, and then the stairs down to the ground floor were just to the right of the door, and her eldest was stood there, and she literally beat the living shit out of me, like throwing punches, slaps, like pulling my hair, like literally battered me. And I just remember, like, obviously this is like months, and I've got all this emotion of like being nervous because I'm debuting, and I just grabbed hold of her wrists and just pushed her against the wall, and I was like, that's enough. I was like, your daughter is literally seeing this, like, what is going on? Like, leave me alone. Like, and then obviously managed to like walk down the stairs, and then straight away, because I'd grabbed her wrists, because there was obviously hand marks, it was, I'm phoning the police. Leah's like seen all this, like she's witnessed it. That's it now. She's going to back me up because she's my daughter. Like, you're going to go to prison. You'll never wrestle. You'll never. But by this point, I didn't care. I just shut the door behind me, and I got to wrestling. So there's like a couple of pictures that I've kept from that day. So one is obviously the selfie of me with a Batmobile, which is pre this attack happening. And then post the attack, I've literally got my grey jacket hung up on the cage behind me. And I took another selfie of just like, it's one of those reflection moments that was like, I've literally just gone through that. Like, and she's now messaging me, like, obviously trying to like firefight because I've left, and she can't control the narrative of what's going on. And I just remember I was like, right, okay, I'm not Jamie anymore. I'm Jimmy. I'm debuting. This is a big thing. This is my moment. Nothing's going to stop it. So I just ingested and consumed everything that had gone on, and just nobody knew. Didn't speak to anybody about it. Didn't. You would never have known, Went out, debuted. Amazing feeling. Had loads of people there that I knew. It was great. It was just everything I'd worked towards. Got backstage, and because she'd come to the show, because obviously she had to save face with our friends and stuff like that, she messaged me saying, I'm so proud of you. Like, I love you so much. Like, you're so amazing. You're so inspiring. Like, I can't wait to see you afterwards. And it just, like, that kind of mind games of just, you know what you did earlier, like what you've put me through the last few months as well. Like, why would I ever in my wildest fantasy want to, like, want that with you? You've done that, but I didn't have anywhere else to go. I'd like, all my printing stuff for my business was in the spare room of the house. I'd like moved in. My life was there. Like, I couldn't just, especially with how volatile the situation was, I couldn't just be like, no, I'm not coming home, because I didn't know what was going to happen to my printing stuff. I didn't know, so fast forward out of that, I managed to get out of that and away, thankfully. Despite obviously the the slander and all the usual stuff that comes out. You know, she turned up at like my mom's house crying, saying that she wanted me back and that she missed me and that she was really sorry. She messaged me apologizing for hitting me, and like, you know, she was like, you just like, you know how I get when I get to that position. Like I didn't know what I was doing, the kind of but then would go out on socials and be like, oh, he's done this, he's stolen from me, but he's done this. He's like, you know, so yeah, it was just like horrific. And that was like the start of my journey at wrestling. So then to kind of like, I'd never been at the point in my life where I felt low. Like I'd never experienced that. I experienced heartbreak and unhappiness, like with obviously past girlfriends or whatever. You know, you split up, you cry, you listen to sad songs, you move forwards. But I'd never experienced that low where I didn't want to be alive anymore. I didn't want to think it, and it was the first time that I'd ever tried to do something. And the only thing that stopped me that time was the fact that it was in that house, and it would have been very selfish of me for the kids to have had to, like, as much as I wanted to go and I'd had enough, and I like, that's what kept me here. Just that thought of like, it's not fair on their life, like not her. I'm like, at this point it was like, you've done what you've done. I'm not, you know, but it was the kids, and it's not very nice to leave for them. So I obviously changed my mind, but yeah, thankfully, obviously got away with it. I managed to avoid any of the like the rubbish that she was spouting. Enough people kind of knew me and kind of protected me, I guess, and kind of stopped any of that kind of escalating, you know. And eventually it took several years, but eventually it stopped, you know. Obviously, again, learning more about narcissism and when they lose their feed or their like source of what they're taking from you. Obviously it takes them a long time to be able to readjust out of it. So yeah, it was just, that was like right at the start of my career where I'm like the most nervous, the most like imposter syndrome is kicking at an all-time high, because you know you're like just breaking in, you know, you're going up against guys that have wrestled all the time. You know, you can have as much confidence in yourself and your ability, but yeah, like I had all of that outside of it to deal with. So on the flip side, I then turned wrestling into my escape, because whenever I would walk through the doors, Jamie got left there and I was Jimmy. So whenever I was at training, whenever I was involved with the wrestling lot, whenever I was Jimmy. I was like, nothing mattered, nothing, because Jimmy was flamboyant, Jimmy was confident, Jimmy was like, and I kind of trained myself to leave all that. And then eventually, sort of as time went on, obviously that helped me heal from that. So yeah, it just, that's right at the start. So, you know, 7-8 years ago now. So yeah, right at the start of the journey. So
definitely, mate. All I can really say, mate, is I'm absolutely devastated that you had to go through that, and I think I speak for everyone listening and watching when I say that you're a lot stronger than what you probably give yourself credit for. So obviously we will talk about obviously domestic abuse side of things in a short while. So obviously when you're getting into wrestling and everything, obviously you are dealing with the problems that you are dealing at home. Do you ever find yourself at all having to sort of like pull yourself back from that darkness in order to get yourself ready for a show, or was it just like a switch had gone off and you were like, I'm not Jamie now, I'm Jimmy, or did it ever kind of like go on top of the other?
Yeah, so I guess like I'm quite emotional anyway. Like I feel things like that I do. Like, you know, I got choked up at the start. Obviously, reliving Titanium is a wrestling name now because obviously she's got pins and stuff in her spine, so it's very aptly named. But you know, it's quite hard to consume and not like allow that to come out. So I guess, like I said, I did train myself to use wrestling as an escape and as a way of healing for me, because, you know, Jamie wasn't strong enough at that moment to combat what was going on, but Jimmy could. Like Jimmy, when I put on the pink and had the sunglasses and the lollipop, like he could do anything. He could win championships. He could do whatever he wanted. He was like, he was a superhero to me. You know, he was, and I know it's like cliche and a lot of wrestlers will say it, but Jimmy is just an extension of me. He is just me ramped right the way up. So to be able to leave that to one side, I guess it kind of just transitioned where it was like, okay, that's real life, but this is where I get to do something different, and I can use that, all that mixed emotion of like anger and fear and all the cortisol and all the other crap that gets mixed in with it of like fight or flight, and you know, all of this all mixed in. I can do something with this, you know, like it was, and it did become my superpower, because it was like, right, okay, I'm hurting, but I can do something good. I can go out and I can, you know, I can be the best heel that I can be, and I can go and win championships, and I can go and do this, and I can go and do that. So I think if it wasn't for wrestling and I had to have gone through what I went through, I don't know how that would have ended, because it was such a big part of the journey of coming out of it. So yeah, just very grateful, very.
Definitely would. So obviously, when you're preparing for like it could, if it's a big match or anything like that, and you have something such as big as a mental health struggle going off behind the scenes, was there anyone that you could confide in at all? Was there anyone that you could sort of like say, I'm struggling, can I just speak to you? I've got a couple of things I need to get on my chest. Or did you feel as though you had to hold it all in case it came out?
So it's kind of a bit of a mixed thing. I don't trust a lot of people, just generally because of experience that I've had with people. You know, not everyone that I come in contact with, but my eyes are very open to people are very, very happy to take on what you're telling them, because they're just literally choosing the location in your back to stick the knife in at the right time, and you've given them everything. Like you've given them the keys to the house. You've literally all the locks that they need to unlock to get to you, all your biggest fears, all your like weaknesses, all your everything is you've just gifted them on a silver platter. And obviously that was my experience of, I opened up to a couple of people and it just gets twisted and used back. You know, you find out like, because this is the thing with being like stepping through life in a negative kind of fashion, or in a, you know, choosing the wrong path to go down. It will always catch up with you, and the truth will always come out, regardless of how good you think you are at it, and regardless of what you do, who you surround yourself with. The truth will always come out. And I would always find out that people had been going behind my back and speaking to my ex, or, you know, it was kind of, you know, just that you feel it. You feel that, like, you'd walk into a room and you know they'd just been like talking about you, but not in like a good way. And you just very quickly realize that, like, the group of people that I was around at the time was not the kind of people that I could open up to. Obviously, I'd lost my dad, not very close to my mom, not really that close to family. So it, you know, and I understand it now, having gone to counselling and stuff, but I will touch on that a little bit more. But I understand why I used to put everything into relationships, because that's all I had. Like, I didn't have friends, I didn't have family, I didn't have, so all my trust, everything would go into that person. So then if I lost that person, I would wobble, because I've lost my support system, even though they were never a support system. So yeah, I did struggle, because the people who I thought were friends, or were like I could confidently speak to, who I wrestled with or I shared a lot of time with, would just waiting to pull the rug out from under you, because, you know, at the time my career was doing this and theirs was kind of here, you know. And it's, people are always, I say this as a generalization, not all people obviously, but the people who I was around were just opportunists, and they were just waiting for that right moment to be able to, you know, I've seen it all. I've you know, I see everything that gets said. I see everything that, you know, it's all these people that to my face will be, oh, you know, you're so good, you say you this, and then behind your back, they're just not the people you are. So it's, yeah, it's it was a very lonely period of time trying to find my people, because there was a lot of like letdowns and a lot of backstabbing and a lot of just, yeah, it was easier for me to just be like, okay, I'm on my own. I can do this. I'm, you know, rightly or wrongly, that was how I had to deal with it. So, you know, at that point, I didn't have anybody. So it was, I had Jimmy. That's who I had. As sad as that sounds, that was my go-to.
Definitely. So, obviously, as we know, with you being an owner and promoter of a wrestling company, what sort of role do you believe that gives you in fostering an environment where talent feels safe and encouraged to prioritize their mental health? And have you had to step in when someone has felt particularly down at all?
So I think as the owner or promoter, it is your sole responsibility to make sure that everyone who works for you is happy and everything is done correctly. You know, whether that's like, obviously as the company grows, obviously if you've got to have a hierarchy of staff, you know, a safeguarding officer, like, I think that should be implemented and it should be put in place. You know, it is a very, I saw one of the clips that you shared the other day, about it obviously being an ungoverned like venture. You know, anybody can start a wrestling company, anybody can go and buy a wrestling ring and welcome kids through the door. And, you know, a DBS is a DBS. It's great, but there's other courses out there that people should be doing, safeguarding, you know, working with kids with additional needs. You know, there's so many more that just, but all you need is a DBS and that's it. And you can open your doors and parents will gladly send their children to you. You know, so I think it wholeheartedly lands with you, your morals and your responsibility as a company owner should want everything to be above board. You shouldn't just be doing the bare minimum. You shouldn't be like, you should be making sure that all your insurances are in place, that all your kit is the right sort of kit. You're not asking people to do stuff that they can't do as out of their comfort zone, or like sharing cars with other wrestlers that they don't know. I know it's part of it, and I like, there's some people out there that will be screaming at the screen going, well, that's wrestling, but it's not about that. It's those times have gone. I've heard stories of how locker rooms used to be for women way back when, and recently as well. Like, so it wholeheartedly lands with you, and you should be doing everything you can, because get out. Don't be a promoter. Like, if you're not going to put the well-being and safeguarding in place for people who are there, not just the wrestlers but your fans as well, just leave it alone. Go away. Like, because if there was a governing body, you wouldn't get anywhere near it. Like, and that's as much as a governing body coming in would potentially destroy a lot of the smaller promotions that are either just starting out or just, there's a reason that gymnastics, that football, that boxing, that all of these have these governing bodies in place, because it keeps people accountable. And yes, stuff still goes on. It does, of course it does, but it would alleviate a lot, and then people would have to actually step up and be decent human beings, and have morals to run a pro wrestling company. And yeah, that's me getting on my soapbox, because that should be how it is. It shouldn't be that just anybody can just run it. There are people out there that shouldn't be anywhere near, and are, because there's nothing. Nobody will speak up about it. Nobody will, because they're being booked, because they're being, the guy is feeding their ego. It's feeding, it's manipulating their childhood passion, or their journey, or their mental health, or it's it definitely lands with the promoter. And like I said, if you're not doing enough, and you're not doing at the very least the bare minimum, get out of wrestling. Go away. Leave it alone.
Definitely, mate. Could not have said it better myself. So, at Eagle Pro Wrestling, have you put in place any specific mechanisms, like a mandatory check-in or a resource system at all, if someone is struggling and they need to ask for help, or is it just sort of like a free forum where anyone can speak out?
So my obviously inbox is always open to any of the roster, any of the staff that I have there. It's always open, and check-ins are done. After a show, if there's been a particular type of match, there was the main event of the last show, and it's making sure that those guys are okay. Like, especially afterwards, just letting people know that you're grateful, letting people know that it's okay to speak. If there's something that's bothering you, it is, again, something as I move forward, and the company does get bigger. Obviously, I don't want that responsibility as such to fall completely on my shoulders, like bringing an outsourced sort of like safeguarding or well-being, or like a the name of it escapes me. I said it earlier, and it's really frustrating me that it's on the tip of my tongue and I can't get it out. But so bringing somebody in. Yes, that's it. Yeah, so like bringing somebody else in who can that is their sole purpose at the show, just to to be there. It's an impartial, completely And like, although I've got like a stack of like certificates and things through the job that I used to do, like I'm still not as professionally trained as obviously somebody who does this as a job. So there's things that I may miss. So I think it's just something that I will 100% implement going forward, because why not? Like, why not have something there? Why not, to protect everyone? And like I said, as things get bigger, I'm only one person. I'm already trying to do so much. I don't want to not give somebody at a show my full attention because I'm stressing because music has not worked, or it's, so yeah, I think that's part of my vision is, I don't want to give too much away because like, as much as I want other promotions to do it, I don't, it's kind of one of them, like, I want to set the trend with it and I want to implement it first, and so others can see it happening. Like I said, I have a goal and I have a vision of how my setup will be. And I've seen others are pretty much there. That they do things how they obviously have got their vision, and it's amazing to see that others are with like mind. But yeah, it's definitely something as I grow that will grow as well. Because as you become busier, obviously more things are happening. I see, obviously I've had back-to-back shows these last couple of months, but before that I didn't see the guys for a couple of months. So a lot can go on. It's something that if they need to come half an hour before the show and speak to somebody just to get it all out, or, yeah. So it's definitely on the horizon.
Absolutely, mate. So, last question before we get obviously into the very deep, dark depths of the domestic abuse questions, bud. If for anyone that's watching, whether they be a wrestler, whether they're a fan, a referee, commentator, whoever it may be, if there's any advice you could give to that person who is suffering in silence, whether that be mental health, or if it is domestic abuse, if it's addiction, what advice would you give to that person?
There is a life the other side of it. There is a very, very beautiful, amazing, abundant life that you can create for yourself. It sucks, and it's horrible, and you should never have to go through it. But it's one hell of a superpower to flip it into a positive. It can be used so well, like after I come out of my most recent one, arguably I got into the best shape I'd ever been in. My life was so fulfilled. I was so grateful. It was so good. It was so, because I was so driven and I had so much like energy just to give, to get rid of, and as with anybody says, any entrepreneur says, or anybody who promotes positivity or growth, or there is no growth in comfort. Stay in here where you feel comfortable and everything's rosy, and you're not doing anything that pushes you, or no growth will ever happen. Growth happens when you are uncomfortable, and it's a very sad byproduct of, obviously, going through that is horrific and it's horrible. But if you can find some way to combat that and turn it around into a positive, and put one foot in front of the other every single day, progress will be made, and you will realize that you can turn it into something that you can be grateful for. As I sit here today, as much as it's going to suck reliving it, and as much as it's, I turned it into a positive. My life would not be how it is now. I would not be in this position that I'm in now had it not been for that. And for people who have gone through domestic violence or abuse, or have been with a narcissist, or have like even addiction to a certain degree, it is the biggest fuck you back to it. You raising yourself up and living to your full potential, because there's nothing else that can do it. You can't have an argument with a narcissist. You'll never win. They'll tie you up in knots. But you stepping away and becoming the best version of yourself is torture, because they can't get to that. They can't touch you. They can't, you start working on the things that people can't take away from you. Like money can be lost. That's not what you need to focus on. You need to focus on your inner stuff. You need to focus on you as a person, the love for yourself, not for anybody else, for you as a person, the things that people cannot ever get to again. You just alleviate all of that, and you can do that by turning that negative into a positive. And it sucks, and it's hard, and it's graft, and it's every day is the most torturous, treacherous, horrible cycle of just reliving stuff and relapsing and just, it's just horrible. But like I said, if you can keep finding positives in everything you're doing and keep stepping forward and keep moving and keep pushing, it does become easier, and it does get turned around into something that, like I said, it's a big fuck you to whatever put you there.
I could not have said that better myself, mate. That's absolutely sound advice, bud. So, guys, we are going to be going into the domestic abuse side of the questions now. So it's just a pre-warning that this could get quite dark. So obviously, first of all, Jimmy, I do want to thank you for getting in touch and wanting to share your story about this. Can you explain to us what was the catalyst, sort of like the moment that made you realize that you had to seek help and break the cycle of the abuse?
So the day-to-day life was kind of very similar. So it got to a point where she had used up everything that she needed from me. She'd got everything. She'd stripped me of everything that I had, everything that I was. I was a shell. I really was. And so in her true pattern of how life is, I got cast aside and she'd moved on to somebody else. So I was living with her at the time in South Wales. So obviously I was like 2 hours away from home. Didn't really have any sort of money to my name. It was all tied up in the limited company. I had a car, but that's got a story to it as well. So it was just the moment of actually, I messaged a friend of mine who lived down in Cornwall. Obviously, I'm half Cornish. My dad used to live there. So it's like a home from home for me. Plus, it's the most beautiful place in the UK, like hands down. I'm biased, but so I messaged her and was just like, look, I've tried to do something that was obviously not what I wanted to be doing. Am I okay to go in detail with that? Because it's quite dark, but
You can go as deep as you like, mate. End of the day, the episode is about you. If you are comfortable with doing it, then go ahead, mate.
So obviously about 18 months worth of abuse, of constant day-to-day, just being put in fight or flight, being ground down, just, attacked, abused, both physically and mentally. Just an emotional roller coaster. Came to a head, obviously, out of nowhere. What I thought, when I look back, it's not out of nowhere, but out of nowhere, an argument that had formed by me going to buy her some weed, but I didn't get back quick enough, or I didn't tidy the kitchen, escalated into something, and we broke up. So that sent me into a spiral. Again, everything, I was engaged to this girl, everything that I'd given, everything that I'd been through, everything had all just kind of exploded, and I didn't have any control. I didn't have anybody. I didn't have anything. I'd lost what I thought at the time was my whole world. It had just been flipped upside down. So it's a very dark place to be in when you get to the point where you're okay with no longer being here. You're okay with going. I did everything in my head that I needed to do. I put statuses out on my business pages. Nobody knew it at the time, but on Jimmy Vice and on my printing page, just thanking everyone for everything. I'd said goodbye to the dog. I'd made peace with everything. I'd left everything on my desk at the workplace that we shared at the time, with everything that was needed to just close everything, and a few passwords for bits and pieces and things like that. I was done. I was okay. I was, as silly as it sounds, as I walked out of the shop and kind of locked the door and stuff, and I felt the most free that I had in a very, very long time. And it's, like I said, it's quite a scary place to be, that you are that okay, and you are, obviously you're not okay, but you are okay with the decision that you've made, and you are you have that feeling of freedom. And because it was something I could control, it was me putting a full stop on it, and it was me deciding to do it. And I took some bungee rope from the wrestling ring box that was in the shop, and literally walked out to a tree not too far from the shop, and yeah, obviously got up there, and obviously did what I went to go to do, and again, just that feeling of just freedom, I was like, okay, I'm not going to feel this pain anymore. I'm not going to, it felt like an eternity that was up there. How long it was, I don't know. But the only thing that changed my mind that day, bearing in mind, being too graphic, I've obviously got something around my neck. I'm struggling to breathe. I'm the only thing that got me down was the rope pulled on my beard, and it fucking hurt. And that was enough to snap me out. That was enough to be like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And it's something so stupid, it's a beard. How can the pain that I was going through be, but it was enough. And I luckily managed to get myself down. Don't know how. It's one of those, isn't it? In that moment, you become superhuman almost. You're fighting for your life. And I fought that day, and I got myself down, and instantly something happened and something clicked, and I became, in that moment, okay. I was like, if I can do this, I've got a shot. I can get myself through this. I can do it. I'm not like, it's a breakup. I can do this. So I messaged my friend down in Cornwall, who's a counsellor, basically explained what had gone on. And I was like, I need to get out of here for a few days. I need to clear my head. I need a break. I need to, like, I've just done what I've done. Like, and she let me come down. So I literally used the last bit of money that I had to put fuel in the car. I got 10 minutes outside of a house and the exhaust fell off the car. Like, it's literally one of those, where you just like, but I didn't care. The exhaust dragged on the floor. I managed to like snap it off and put it in the boot. It's just like nothing was going to stop me getting there. And I broke. I literally broke. And I had to see the bombardment of, obviously, she'd moved on. She had somebody already lined up and things like that, which I should have known was going to happen. I was that other guy 3 and a bit years before. So, but I had to see the bombardment of social media, of people messaging me saying, oh, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? And I just, as much as I was trying to distance myself from my phone, I was still very much hooked on that cortisol, that fight or flight of, I need this pain to feel alive because it's all I've been used to. And as much as my counsellor friend has like trying to give me all these tools to get through it, I was still an addict to it. I was still very much in that nest of hers, like of that web that I couldn't at that moment get out of. And I spent a few days down there, and at the time I remember feeling really, really like annoyed at my friend because she'd already got plans and she was going away for the weekend. But she was like, you can stay here. Here's the keys. Here's a little bit of money. Feed yourself. Like, look after yourself. And I only had enough fuel in the car to get me back home. And by home, where I was living at the time. So it's not like I could just leave. Like, I was stuck in this place on my own all day, every day for like 3 days. And it drove me absolutely insane because I had nobody to talk to because my counsellor friend that I was like literally pouring everything out had gone. I had nothing. I spiraled for a couple of days and then managed again to kind of like get myself to a point where I was like, okay, I feel stable enough. And we had training on the Wednesday night. So obviously I had an obligation to be there for the trainees, so I was like, right, I'd had a lot of time to reflect. I was like, okay, I can do this for the company because it was a limited company. So it was, legally binding that we were both directors, it was a professional company. So I was like, okay, it sounds silly now when I say it, but I am willing to be that person that will be, okay, you're with somebody, this is business, life is life. Like, I'd made plans that I was already going to stay in South Wales. I was going to go and stay with some of the trainees for a little bit, just sofa surf until I got myself in place. I was like, I was going to try and make it work because MPW at the time was like, it was just starting to grow. It was just starting to flourish. We were just about to release a belt that we'd done from Adrian Street that had sadly passed, but he'd signed off on it. I had all of this. I was like, I can make this work. I can do this. I can go up to the guy. I can shake his hand. I can be the bigger person. And went back, got back, walked into the shop, and it's one of those images that it's still in my head to this day, even like 2 years on, is just the look of just nothing behind the eyes, just dead, just no soul, like evil, just look that she just stared through me, because how dare I come back and not crumble away and just hand her the company, you know, like she'd kind of hinted at that she would just take over and just, you know. So I sat at my desk, and there was something that we were planning on. I think it was another show like the week after, because we had a show on that Saturday planned, tickets sold, all sorts. And I just said, I was like, I don't think, with everything that's going on, I don't think the show next week is a good idea. I think we should cancel it. And she kicked off big style, like, so it went back and forth for a little bit. I was asked all sorts of questions about why I'd blocked people, which my answer to that was, they know what they did. They literally they saw what you were up to. They were like, but they've sided with you, like, and they're meant to be my friend as well. So, like, regardless of anything else that's gone on, like, I don't want that person around me. Like, and they were like, oh, you've made things awkward. You've done this. It's all your fault, blah, blah, blah. So I just literally turned around and said to her, I was like, the trouble is with you is you're a narcissist. And she literally whacked me across the face, like, as hard as she could. And it was one of them slow motion where I just kind of looked back at her and I just smiled and I was like, thank you. So she hit me again. And I was just like, she was like, what do you fucking mean? Thank you. And I was like, you have given me everything I need right now to know that, like, I'm not in the wrong, despite everything you're trying to say. Like, thank you. Which obviously then, because I hadn't reverted to what I would normally be like when she hit me, it went on to a bombardment and of like fists, feet, like pulling my hair, like just like all sorts. And obviously, as much as I sat there for the first two and I was like, okay, I still didn't want to get hit. No one likes being punched, or like, you know, it's not a very nice feeling. And as much as it was like fueling that, and obviously I was trying to get my phone out to phone, like, obviously my mate, to, like, so she could listen to it, so at least I had some sort of evidence, or like trying to get the camera, or just, but I couldn't. I was fumbling with my phone, and I managed to lock myself in the toilet, compose myself, and I phoned my friend, and they answered, and I just said to him, I was like, she's attacked me again. She's done it again. And she was like, hang up, phone the police, tell them everything. She was like, let me know how you get on. So obviously did what she said, phoned South Wales Police. Obviously, like, talked the best I could through this, but came out of the toilet because I thought she'd left the shop. But I was obviously on the phone. I come out of the toilet, and I used to have a workbench across, so there was like distance in between us, and she was in a little sewing bit, and I was in my printing area, and I was obviously locked eyes with her, and I was talking to the police, and I was like, yeah, she's just attacked me again. This has been going on for like 18 months, blah, blah, blah. And she looked me square in the eye and was like, what you fucking do in your head case? Like, why have you phoned them for? Like, it's just like nothing had happened. Like, I was the crazy one for phoning the police in that situation. And she literally left the shop. And again, it's another one of those images that's like burnt in my head. I went and checked outside the front door while I was on the phone to him, because I was like, she's leaving now. And they were like, what's she wearing? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I've not taken that information in. So I had to literally obviously look out the door, and I was like, oh, she's in this top, this color, this with these socks, and this sort of like her hair's like this, and because the view was that they were going to go and pick her up straight away. So obviously locked all the shop up, completely like obviously petrified then when I'd come out of it the other side, because she posted a picture about an hour later out on a date with this new guy. So I was like how can you go from that situation to sitting across from somebody new and being all happy and being obviously the police eventually came out, spoke to me, and yeah, that's when it it kind of sunk in, like what I'd actually been through, because I was speaking to somebody who deals with this daily, and it was a female officer, and she was lovely and really understanding, really helpful, really supportive. Obviously I broke down several times while trying to describe things that had gone on, and it got to the point in the conversation where it was like, because it was her shop, obviously she was the one on the lease, I would have to leave, and I was like, with all due respect, I was like, I've got 2 van loads of stuff here, like I've got no money, I can't just up and leave. And the police were like, we will give you till the weekend before we go and pick her up, because once we take her into custody, that's it. She can't be anywhere near you, but you can't stop her going to her place of work. So I was like, okay, right, the weekend, that's fine. Bearing in mind this is Wednesday night, cancelled training, and I've still got the messages now. So I cancelled it, to which point obviously the trainees were like, oh my god, what's happened, what? And then she'd message back to them saying, oh, I don't know what's gone on, it's a real shock, like, just trying to play that part. And then obviously spoke to the police further and had to cancel the show on the Saturday. So under their advice, because obviously I said to them, it's my job, I've still got to show that, it's what is paying the money, it's what, I'm a director. And they were like, you cannot be in the same building if you are going to proceed with this. You can't, you have to cancel that show, because obviously she's not going to be willing to not turn up. So you can't put yourself into that. So I put in the group, really sorry guys, the show's cancelled, to which she wrote a message back saying, I have no idea what's going on, this is really unprofessional, I'm so sorry, and then kicked me out of the group, to which point then she blocked me from the business bank account, had chucked me out of all the socials, so I had no access to, obviously trying to firefight to protect that. Obviously I private messaged a few of the guys that I was closer to, and I was like, look, this is what's happened, I'm really sorry, I know you've lost the booking, but bear with, kind of thing. So which brings me on to the next point of, obviously I had all this stuff in the shop, and all the wrestling ring, all the sound equipment, all the lights, all the everything that was Merthyr Pro Wrestling was all in this building. And I'd obviously sought legal advice. Being a director of a limited company, obviously there's more legalities to it if you're just a sole trader. It's a governing body in itself, isn't it, being a limited company? So I sought legal advice, and I was like, look, if I leave this shop, I am 2 hours away, I will have no access to this wrestling ring. I know what she's doing, because of the messages, she's trying to take over the company. What can I do? And they basically said to me, you're allowed to move that ring from that premises to a neutral storage unit as long as you still give her access if she asks for it. So I was like, great, that's all I need to know, because then the ball is no longer in her court, it's a neutral, we can, if we're going to try and figure something out, we can do it. So this was all obviously on it happened on the Wednesday. Thursday, completely flapping, trying to chase my tail, trying to work things out. Friday, I finally managed to get back over to Telford, sort a storage unit out for everything, hire a van. It was a hell of an onslaught of like no sleep hardly, and just went back Friday night. Slept on my Batman chair that I had at the time in the shop, because obviously I couldn't go anywhere else, and I didn't want to leave in case she came, changed the locks or did anything. Like so much was racing around my head at this point. So I managed to get the ring in the van, bring it back to Telford, put it in a storage unit, went back to go and load all the stuff, obviously, for my printing, said goodbye to some of the trainees, left, got back about 5 a.m, I think, something silly, after like nearly falling asleep at the wheel. And got back, like literally got home, finished, it was all done, it was in the storage unit, the van had gone back to Wales, I drove my car back, everything was fine. In which time she then very publicly stepped down as director of MPW. So did a very public post on a wrestling page and a personal, said that she'd wished it all the best and that she'd parted ways, and also on Company's House had also stepped down as director as well, so relinquished any financial burden, any responsibility, and she had stepped down, so she no longer worked for that company. That was great news for me, because she didn't own any of the assets then, because they were bought by the limited company. So she had basically helped me without realizing it. She'd obviously then gone back to work on the Tuesday into the shop. During this time as well, as I was leaving Merthyr, I had a phone call from the police, and they were like, look, we're going to pick her up now. We're literally on our way to a house. Are you able to leave? Are you able to leave the shop? Because obviously, like I said, once they took her into custody, that was it. I had to leave. And I was like, yes. I was like, I'm literally in the car now, just leaving. I'm just going. And they were like, oh, okay then. So put the phone down, literally phoned the police back the next day, and they were like, oh yeah, we didn't go around in the end because you'd left. They were like, we knew you were safe, so we got called out on something else, so we didn't bother. No, literally their words, like they didn't bother because they had other things to do, and they knew I wasn't in the area, so I was safe and I was away. So then obviously once she then went back to the shop to go back to work, she obviously realised that everything had gone. So then the bombardment of social media posts about how I'd stolen the ring, I'd stolen the car, I'd stolen this, I'd stolen that, I'd stolen just the constant just bombardment of untruthful shit that was just being spouted around, to obviously trying to destroy and control the narrative. So obviously she knew what had happened, she knew what had gone on, so then I had to put up with all of that afterwards for, felt like forever. I was just, I'd stopped wrestling. I'd like locked myself away. My only focus was finding a new building to obviously do the printing out of, because that was the only income that I really had. But yeah, just the constant, as much as I blocked her on everything, like people were still at this point trying to, you know what it's like. They think they're doing good. Some are, but others, they're just fishing for information. They just, I had people reaching out saying, oh, what's gone on then? Like, what's Ingy? And then I'd kind of stupidly, with some of them, I'd tell them. And then a few weeks later, I'd see them on a show with her, or or commenting, or just, so it was like, well, I've told you all of this, but then you're still then going there. So it was, she very, very quickly moved around a lot of people to obviously surround herself with like enablers that were, oh, he's done this, he stole the ring, he's done this, and they were like, oh my god, well, oh, we need to like thingy you, and like obviously I was told by the police that I couldn't post anything publicly about it, regardless of what it was. I could not mention the situation. I couldn't mention what I'd been through. I couldn't. So I had to literally completely just be silent and watch this person just trying to completely destroy everything about me, about my wrestling, about everything, just because they were trying to protect their own obviously image of what was going to be that I thought at the time was going to be like a legal matter. The police were telling me that they were going to go and pick her up and press charges. They were, it just at that point I was just like, what can I do? I feel so powerless that sorry. Yeah, just no control, no over anything. People that I thought were my friends and I'd known for years, even before getting with this person, just to watch them not even ask my side of the story, to just completely just be like, oh, okay, I'm okay with what she said. Like, he's gone now. Like, I'm not, it was a very, very difficult transition in life to come out of what I'd just come out of. I pretty much slept for like 2 days afterwards when I got back home, just from the sheer exhaustion of fight or flight, constantly worrying about what was going on. Crazy, really. And just to obviously not be heard and not be, to be constantly chasing the police to find out what was going on, to find out, that 6 months down the line they still hadn't brought her in for questioning. They still, and it's me having to chase them. They're not updating me. And then eventually I phoned them one day just on the off chance, and they were like, oh, really sorry, we were meant to contact you before. We've brought her in, we've had a word with her. She's going to leave you alone now, and that's it. We're done. The case is closed. And I was like, what do you mean the case is closed? And they were like, well, it's your word against hers. We'd like, and I'm like, but I've shown you like 6 months worth of text messages of her admitting to hitting me at, like, there was an incident where we were at a wrestling show weekend, like it was at like a truck fest type thing, and we got into an argument, and she literally pulled my hair in front of a promoter and 2 other wrestlers, and I literally turned to them and I was like, this is the real her. And she was like, oh, they know what I'm fucking like. And nothing was said. Nothing. Like, they still booked her even after it, even after all of it. And it's at that point where you're like, okay, men really don't have a say in this. They don't have they don't have a voice. They're not taken seriously. They're not, flip it around the other way. I wouldn't be sat here now as Sugar Jimmy Vice. I'd have been carted off. I'd have been, I would have no wrestling career. I'd have no business. I'd have no life, and rightly so. I'm not saying if it was the other way around, but for it, just didn't care. It just, where's the justice? Where's the, I'm showing you all this evidence and you're just telling me because I didn't report it, they can't take it into account. But I'm like, I'm reporting the latest attack now. Like, I'm telling you now, but I'm showing you messages of them admitting that they've done it before. So regardless of that, I didn't report it at that time. You never do, because you're made to believe that it was your fault. Constantly it was, you know what I get like, so why do you push me to that point? You know, constantly being squared up to my face, what, like being hit and then being told like, what are you going to do about it, big strong boy? Like, just, it's just nothing. There's just no, yeah, there's just fucking sucked. Like, to feel so alone as a man, having gone through that for so long, to just not getting anything. There's just nobody cares. That's what it felt like. Nobody, you know, promoters were still booking her, you know, like people who were close to the both of us obviously sat down and broke down in front of them and showed them all the messages and showed them everything, and they were like, I'm just staying impartial, I don't want to take sides. And I'm like, but in you saying that, you've taken her side. So like, people will say a lot about me. They're like, that I've burnt bridges myself, like, and yeah, to a certain degree, yes, I have, because I've burnt those fucking bridges to protect myself. Like, people know what they've done, and the people that have done wrong will always try and destroy your character or your reputation to protect what they have done, because they can't deal with it. They can't be morally like obligated enough to go, okay, I've done wrong here, I need to work on myself, like I've done that person wrong. So they'll just destroy you for it. And yeah, like I said, I have burnt bridges. I don't want to go and work places that will gladly book her or gladly go and spend a locker room afternoon with her, knowing what she's done. Like, how can you morally? I'm sorry, but you can't. Like, so, you know, the only silver lining to it as a wrestling perspective now is that, you know, the guy that she moved on with, she pretty much did the same to him without the violence. And we've been speaking quite a lot recently. He reached out and he apologized, and he, you know, he said he should have seen it before. And he's even spoke of her like with one of her best mates, like mocking it, saying, "Oh, imagine getting away with hitting your ex-boyfriend by the police." Like, so she's like bragging about it in front of her new boyfriend, and like, but she's done the same again. She's split from him and then got with somebody else straight away, and it's just a rinse and repeat. Like, it's, and I had hoped that, because obviously I'd seen what she'd done previously and hearing things about her, I was like, that's partly why when she hit me for the last time, I was like, you've given me everything, because I can stop you now. Like, you will never do this to another man. But what power did I have when South Wales Police couldn't even be asked to go and pick her up for 8 months, giving her all that time to think of a story, of just like not taking me seriously, of just, you know, having to sit back and watch her get booked while I haven't even got the strength to even reach out and try and get a book in, or try and, you know, I'm completely just destroyed. But that's the beauty of being a man in this situation, unfortunately. It's, you know, I think I read somewhere that it's every 1 in 3 women experience it, but every 1 in 4 men go through it. And that's quite a scary statistic, really, to think that that's just a statistic that is obviously registered, or that's not even what goes on that hasn't been reported, or, you know, on both sides, on both parties. But yeah, more needs to be done. It's, you know, it's yeah.
Absolutely, mate. As someone that has been through very similar, mate, I completely understand where you're coming from. Got a couple of comments just to go through, bud. very good friend of mine, Liam from the Magic of Wrestling, asks, how much did the reflection help you?
So the reflecting of obviously what I'd been through, I'm guessing that's what he means. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said a bit before, it became a superpower. It literally became like a determination and a pure grit and like drive to never ever ever let another woman put her hands on me like that, or to be in a position where I was vulnerable enough to allow that to happen. Because obviously, it's not right when you go through it. Like the very first time that she hit me, and it was all tears from her and all apologies and oh my God, I'm so sorry. And you kind of get sucked in, and it's not just that incident. And this is the thing that people don't realize. I had people say, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you leave? Why? It's not as simple when you have had somebody who is a calculated narcissist manipulate and grind down over a span of, it can be a year, 2 years, 3 years, constantly every day, making you question your own sanity or the reality that you live in, constantly putting you in a fight or flight. When it happens, you believe, like the amount of times that she'd hit me and I'd leave the house and I'd be like, right, this isn't right, I need to go. Obviously, having lived through it before. And then she'd message me and be like, oh, I'm really sorry I'm acting like this. It's just I've missed a period and I might be pregnant. Or so then I'd go back because obviously it'd be like, oh my God, oh, what have I done? Like shit, I need to go and, and then like a few days later, it was like, oh yeah, it's all right. I've come on, I'm fine. Like, and then you're like, well, how can that be? Like, how can it, I very stupidly now got engaged to her on the first MPW show, had Adrian Street there. It was all like fantastic, like really, like boom, here's MPW. Decided to get engaged to her. She threw the ring back at me the next day when we were at home and was like, how fucking dare you ask me in front of a room full of people, forcing me to say yes. And I was just like, shit, okay. Like, I've just very publicly, like, done this, like, big display of affection, used my dad's fucking wedding ring and now this. So it's not just as simple as, like, why don't you leave? Like, so upon reflection, it then fueled me to, never be in a position where I didn't have a car, don't ever be in a position where somebody has got financial control over you. Don't ever allow yourself to be that's what I touched on before, those things that people can't get at. If you work on those things, you become impenetrable, and narcissists won't approach you like that because they can see that you're not falling for the little hooks that they put into you at the start, or the love bombing, or you see it and you're like, nope. And you don't attract that. They're vampires. They're just circling around. They're just, so. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that question. Can we just pause for 1 second, because I need to message my missus because training starts at 5:00 and I hadn't realised we've been talking for like 2.5 hours. So I just need to let them know that I'm going to be a little bit late. So just bear with me if that's all right.
Of course.
Don't
course.
know.
No. Yes, obviously, guys, I want to thank Jimmy so much for him coming on the show and just speaking about his journey. It's a really big thing. Also, want to point out that Jimmy actually messaged me privately to come on the show. If anybody at all that is watching this, whether you are a wrestler, whether you are a fan, whether you are just someone that has come across this by accident or someone has sent it to you, if you are a victim of domestic abuse, whether you are a man that's been abused by a woman that's been abused by a man, whatever the situation is, there is help out there for you. And I understand that this is a very upsetting episode of the Unseen Battles, but I'm truly honoured and truly privileged that Jimmy has come on and to speak about this, because this needs to be spoke about a lot more. in my opinion, as someone that is a survivor of domestic abuse. I cannot commend Jimmy enough for coming on the show. So we'll obviously continue when he comes back.
Sorry about that. I
No worries,
literally
mate.
hadn't realised the time. I've got obviously a little bit of time left, but
Yeah.
obviously,
We could, if you like, we can always do a part 2 at a later date if that is what you want to do, unless you want to speed through a couple of the last questions.
yeah, that's fine. I've let them know. They all know that I'm on here today, and they obviously the basis of what I'm trying to do. So
Yeah.
they're all understanding. And to be fair, I do it for an hour. The session, it's never an hour, because as soon as that hour's up, it's like, what fun should we have now? And then all of a sudden, it's like another hour, and everyone's like, we've got to go. So yeah, it's fine.
Fantastic, mate. So, got a comment from a regular commenter of the channel, Louise De Silva, who says, only came across Eagle Pro last month on Instant. Need to get to a show. They look great. So,
Oh,
very nice
that's
comment from
amazing.
Louise there.
Thank you very much.
Quick question from Kelvin Forster, who I mentioned that had commented before we came on. It says, "Hi Jim, I was also a victim. Do you find that it can be hard to trust others as a result?"
Oh man, like I didn't actually know that. So that cut me deep, hearing that he's been through it as well, because he is, such a nice guy. Amazing. So amazing guy. Yes. Not so much after the first one, because I hadn't kind of processed it. I was still very much in untreated trauma. So obviously when I spoke to the counsellor, I understood that it stems back to childhood, things that obviously were unresolved, unhealed. So I would bounce from person to person, trying to seek that missing bit in me. So the first time, no, I didn't. The second time took me a long time. And it was just trusting women in general. This one really did take its toll, and how let down I was, and how I got to that point at the tree. I struggled for a long time, and my girlfriend now has been so understanding and so supportive, and it's amazing. And I had a few others along the way, not girlfriends. Oh God, Lily dropped myself in it there. No, I had a few other women that were obviously the counsellor down in Cornwall. I had a counsellor in Shrewsbury, and I had some other female friends that without them, I probably would have relapsed, and because the struggles are hard when you come out. And I wobbled all over, and they just kept me steady on the path that I needed to be. And they were just amazing, and they gave me hope that not all women were like that. Not all women were horrible or narcissistic or abusers, or and even as silly as it sounds, just like the place where I was working at used to have, like, obviously it was like a hive of loads of different businesses under one roof. So obviously there'd be like women coming in with their kids and things like that. And obviously you get talking with people there. You get, it's all business, it's all networking. And I just always remember this kid just going to hit me, just playing, just not even. And I literally it just took me back. And they were obviously really apologetic, and because they knew what had happened. And it's not the kid's fault, but that was just like a wow. Okay, so that's a child, and it's still really triggering, and it's still, I was very much like, we're only talking like six months after, so I was still very early on in the process. But to flinch when anybody, I always remember having to walk past a couple having an argument by my mom's house, and it was quite a heated argument, and it just triggered the hell out of me. Like I was like crying. I just like rushing to get home, but I couldn't. I could still hear him, and I could still, and it just, because that's how things would start. It would be, you know, the argument, and then it would get heated, and then it was inevitable that if I didn't say what she wanted to hear, it was going to end up physical. So yeah, it took me a long time to trust, and I still keep a lot of people at arm's length. I still, my guard is up. I don't, you know, and like I said, massive shout out to Shelley, because she's been so understanding and so supportive through all the triggers, and because there's stuff that I healed a lot, and I spent a lot of time on my own healing, and did a lot of work, and did a lot of inner work, and just meditating and all sorts of things to get me to the point. But until you get into another relationship, there is still triggers, and there's still things that you have not healed from, because how can you when you're on your own? Like, you can't until you're in that. So there's still, I think something happened the other day, and obviously the triggers aren't as bad now. I can manage them a lot better, but something happened, or something was just said, just not even in like a thingy kind of way, and it was just like, oh, that hurt a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay. So then obviously I have to give myself time to process that, and obviously discuss that with her, and it's, again, nothing that she's done, nothing that I've done. It's until you're in that, you can't heal from it. So I think it's a very, very difficult one to move forward, and to put your trust into the right person. But yeah, again, I'm really sorry that you went through that, dude. I'll give you a massive hug when I next see you at the show. That's, yeah, gutted.
Absolutely, mate. So big shout out to Kelvin Forster. Thanks so much for that question, bud. Obviously, you need to get off relatively quick, Jimmy. I'll speed through last couple of questions as we start to wind down. So I'll give you one last question, and then we finish off on a couple of lighter questions, just because obviously, as we know, it
send the fans home happy. That's the promoter's way, isn't it?
There we go. So last question on this, bud, is what message do you have for those survivors in the wrestling community, or any community whatsoever, who are still grappling with the isolation and shame often associated with abuse?
It's a really tough question, because as much as my journey can be a voice and it can be a beacon for somebody, obviously there's different levels, there's different people deal with different things. But what I will say is, again, just go and speak to somebody professionally who can ask you questions and open doors that you don't even realize need opening, you know. And there's clever questioning in any psychology that it can be a passing statement, and sorry, all of a sudden you're going down a path and you're like, whoa, how did I start speaking about this? But they know the little hooks to put in, and most of the time we are, unfortunately, we make the wrong choices in the women that we go for because of past unhealed trauma. In my case, it resorted back to childhood stuff that I didn't even realize was a thing, didn't even know, you know, obviously now I know, but like I would never have put that. I just thought I was choosing bad people, and, you know, I was just unlucky, and like, oh, the next one will be better, or, you know. But it's, you've got to take time, and you have got to do the inner work on yourself, and you have to find out the root of why you accept it. Because like I said, the first time that she did it to me, especially having been through it before, that should have been enough to go. Regardless of what she said, regardless of what the situation was, that should have been enough to go, whoa, okay, bye. Like, and to go back to that trust in somebody, I tried a couple of dates, and I tried a couple of like things along the way, and as soon as they would say a certain thing on the, again, rightly or wrongly, but as soon as they would say a certain thing and a red flag would come up, I'd be like, okay, bye. I wouldn't even give them the time of day. And unfortunately, when you're not healed and you're not aware of those red flags, you will see them and just ignore them. When you're healed, you'll be like, okay, red flag, goodbye. Like, so you have to be willing to do that inner work and really push and strive to become really, really strong. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is shit. It is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Put me in a WrestleMania main event in front of 50,000 people, and it would not be as difficult as trying to navigate coming out of that. Like, it was disgusting. It was horrible. It was just, yeah, without a doubt, hardest thing ever. But if you can strive and find the positive, it will become the reason you are the person you are now. It will not be it will not be the final chapter. It will just be, you will become grateful. Like, I am extremely grateful for what I went through. And I feel very, very, very sorry for that person, that they are still in the same loop and they are still doing exactly the same thing, they've not changed, they've not taken accountability, they've not grown, they've not, and eventually the mask slips and people see you for who you are. But that's not for me, that's for them. I'm grateful, like I said. And once you can become grateful, you take all of your power back.
Definitely, bud. If I'm honest, mate, I think we need to do a part 2 on this, because I think we've not even scratched the surface of everything. So, guys, if you want to see part 2 with Jimmy, please let me know in the comments. It would really help. And obviously, smash that like button on this video. To end the podcast, Jim, on the last 2 questions, like I say, we try to make it a bit lighthearted because it can get quite deep. What are your aspirations and goals for Eagle Pro Wrestling and yourself for the future?
To just be the best that I can be, to leave a positive stamp on pro wrestling, just to create a safe space that is full of just happy, hardworking, like, just entertainers and wrestlers that are just love what they do and they get rewarded for it. Like, not just financially, because it should never be about that anyway, but it becomes an amazing experience for everyone involved. Just that's all I can ask, really, that I pass on my knowledge to the next generation, and everybody has a safe, professional environment to do it in.
Definitely, mate. Okay, but to finish out, I always end with this question. I first posted this question to Steve Dean, the referee, who had a full-blown meltdown when I asked him this question. So I'm hoping for quite a funny reaction from yourself. Final question for you, bud, is who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers?
Shit. Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect. Oh, God. God, I'm stuck. Rick Rude and because I'm pressed, and because I'm like, maybe next time when you ask me, I'll have a little bit more of a think. But I'm gonna say Dolph Ziggler.
Ooh.
Because it got brought up in training the other day about his work rate, about how he would put other people over. Very underutilized and underrated performer. So yeah, I'm going to go with them 4. But ask me again next time when I'm not as like flustered, and it will still be Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart, but I don't know whether Rick Rude and Ziggler would be there. But yeah, that's my answer.
Fantastic, mate. So yeah, guys, that is the end of today's episode of the Unseen Battles with Sugar Jimmy Vice. Like I say, guys, if you want to see a part 2 episode of this, let me know in the comments below. Smash that like button as well. Also, make sure that you scan the QR code just at the, above my head, as that will lead you to Mr. Jimmy's Instagram page as well. Obviously, go follow Eagle Pro Wrestling as well. Absolutely fantastic company that is sure to be one of the best companies in the country. I cannot thank Jimmy enough for coming on the podcast. Jimmy, I'm going to let you finish off, bud. Is there anything that you want to plug, anything you want to say? Is there anything you want to get off your chest? Over to you, mate.
So just thank you all for everyone who supports me. You all know who you are. Those likes and just the comments on everything means the absolute world to me. There is something obviously that didn't get to touch on today, but if I can come back on, it involves this carousel behind me and my fashion brand, which is called Second Life Collective. So the logo is a tree, which is obviously down to the tree that was nearly my final place. So there's a big hidden meaning to it all, but it is going to be a fashion brand that is literally raising awareness about men who suffer and survive domestic violence and abuse. So it will be a positive stamp on this, because I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor, and I want to help other men be able to sit there and say exactly the same thing. So yeah.
Fantastic, Jimmy. Couldn't think of any way to be better to finish off the podcast. So there you are, guys. Thank you so much to Jimmy, and thank you so much for joining us, guys. And hopefully this will help someone out there that has suffered from domestic abuse. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you guys later.
Yeah. Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.